Before going absolutely crazy with the wheat field as well as expanding the forest, let's start off today's video at the castle, and for that I've now prepared the next section of the wall as well as the third tower. However, last video you guys wanted me to add different types of towers as well as defense posts, and therefore I've now decided to add this little extension to this section of the wall, which in case of an attack can be used to defend this flank of the castle, therefore also these 3 arrow slits I've added. And immediately I absolutely loved how this turned out and therefore decided to add a similar thing on the other side of the castle as well. First of all, this little next bend section of the wall, these always take ages to build with the slope and the angle, and then the next tower, which is of course a bit smaller than the main towers but fits perfectly to the style of the castle. On the inside I still needed to add stairs for the minifigures to actually be able to reach the wall to then also help defend the castle, and then I've also decided to tile everything with mainly dark bluish gray round plates as well as round tiles as well as a few light bluish gray studs. Now onto the storytelling. Of course I have to create some sort of battle that's going on inside the castle, and therefore I've decided to add this defending knight currently pushing down the attacker. And now, I didn't really like how this didn't fit into the overall time frame of the city, and therefore decided to add a camera crew. First of all, this guy with this giant camera with a gimbal at the end of this bar. Then of course the soundman with a microphone. This is what this little great thing on top is supposed to be, as well as a second camera guy who's currently a bit unsatisfied judging from his look. And you guys might have guessed it, they are of course currently filming the knights who are sort of recreating a past battle that has at some point happened on top of the castle. Some really nice storytelling if you ask me. Then what of course can't be missing are studio lights, and therefore this is now really illegal once again. I love these building techniques. This 1x1 tile is simply snapped into place into this hinge, therefore allowing me to have these 1x1 tiles all placed at an angle. And then behind the camera crew, there you can find all the props with these crossbows right there, as well as helmets to then dress up the actors. Everything that can be found on such a movie set also right there. The makeup artists currently dressing up the actors, and then last but not least the studio lights we've built just a second ago. Having finished this scene, you can immediately see how important it is to have some sort of storytelling going on. Otherwise, of course, everything would be so boring. But let's focus more on the storytelling later on and now continue building the castle. What I'm currently planning right there is the castle keep. So the main tower of the castle right in the center, the very last defense post if you want to call it like that. And this is what it now looked like, although I'm not too sure about the size. I'll show you that in just a second. First of all, before adding that to the castle, we of course have to tile everything and prepare this sort of platform to then later on be simply able to take it out and place it back into the city once again. Modularity is as always the most important thing. This is now what the castle keep looks like if it's placed on top of the prepared platform. Of course we still have to integrate it to the rest of the castle, therefore little staircase right there, and of course more tiling going on right in front. And having it now finally placed into the center of the castle, you might now get an idea why I'm not too sure about the size, because for the main defense or the last defense, it should be a bit higher if you ask me, and I might actually rework that for the next LEGO City update to just add a little bit of extra height so that it really is the tallest tower of the castle. Of course, what cannot be missing in such an update is some more vegetation around the castle to integrate that further into the rest of the landscape. Therefore, I've prepared a ton of new trees. You'll also see that in just a bit. And now let's take a break from the castle and continue with something I've been waiting for the past 4 months or so. Let's continue with the wheat field. First of all, just to remind you of the building technique, I'm using limb elements as a foundation that simply adds natural little gaps inside the wheat field. And then for the next layer, I'm using 2 different types of bars, and on the smaller type of bar, I've added these little Technic connectors, which is quite a common building technique to achieve this look of a wheat field, and also in combination with these taller bars as well as the little natural gaps. I love how this field turned out. What I've also decided to add is a little already harvested area of the wheat field. I for the first try now only prepared this small section, but I honestly love how this turned out, and I'm quite sure that I'm actually going to extend that on a larger scale as well. Now on to the next part. We once again had a little community building event 2 weeks ago where a whole bunch of viewers came over, and together we continued building the trees for the forest, and this is what the turnout of 5 hours of building in this case looked like. Absolutely love these community events. And then it was time for me to place these trees on the hillside. Of course, I'm in future going to add more vegetation for the base layer as well, but for me it's always very important to be able to see how the entire forest comes together and how far I'm actually going to extend it, because at some point, believe it or not, it is too much. I've then also decided to add a few dead trees to the forest floor, and with that I'd say let's take a look at the first before and after pictures of today's video. First of all, this is what the castle now looks like, and now, this is really insane, this is what the before and after of the wheat field looks like. But that's not all that has happened, because let's now take a look at the back of my Lego city, because that's where we still have quite some work to do. First of all, this is what it currently looks like, with this cut-off section that I really didn't have the motivation to continue building, but now my brother has decided that it's at this point time to continue with the mountain, and therefore he's now not only reworked the existing support structure of the mountain, but also added a ton of new stabilization towards the back of the mountain, which of course means that in future we're going to extend the entire thing. And this is now of course all in preparation to not only extend the mountain on top, but also to have a second lift station back there on top of the mountain, which is then going to be connected to this station down there. So we have a fully functional ski lift with maybe even a skiing area right on top. But that's all for the future. Another thing we are of course continuously working on is the night mode of the Lego city. And what you now might notice is that on the upper platform we have 2 new buildings lit up right there in the center, this corner building and then this building right there, because up till now we always had this dark section in the center which really bothered me. And for that corner building, that's actually interesting when it comes to the inside, because we have added a construction site. So these people are currently laying out the floor, and we decided it might be more interesting to have a bit of work that's currently being done instead of all these finished buildings within the rest of the Lego city. Back to daylight and back to the castle, because I still promised you that we have some things to talk about when it comes to the details up there. Of course, from back here you can see everything, and you can also, as I've shown you during the video, remove this tower and have complete access to this inner area of the castle. But what I was now thinking about is repositioning the entire film crew towards the outside of the castle. So I'll probably remove 1 or 2 trees right here, gain a bit more space, and then relocate this exact scene towards the outside. What I've also briefly mentioned during today's video is that I want to have another diagonally running wall towards the center tower of the castle, and now, this is new, probably another line of defense right there, so we have another layer basically of walls towards the right hand side of the hill. So that wraps up the building progress at the castle. I'm now most likely going to continue off camera with all the vegetation behind the wheat field, because, well, that's so repetitive. And also right here in front we still have this little empty area, so I'll fill up these gaps. And so with that being said, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.